Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Life in the Wildlands podcast, where we discuss exciting opportunities with outdoor careers, share professional experiences, and provide advice to overcome the hurdles to federal employment. I am your host, Becky Schufelt, and today we have Nelson Mills, who is a forester with the Sawtooth National Forest in Idaho, and he's going to explain what it is to be a forester, share how he started his career with the Forest Service, discuss how his military experience helped him with his career in the agency, and provide advice for those that want to enter into a forestry career. Thank you for joining us today, Nelson. Go ahead and tell us more about yourself.
Thanks, Becky. So, hi, everyone. My name is Nelson Mills. And like Becky said, I'm a forester here up on the Sawtooth National Forest, located in the town of Ketchum in central Idaho. And I've been here for about 6 years now and been doing a lot of work in the forestry, hazardous fuels, and wildland fire realm. So glad to be here.
Great. Welcome. So Nelson, can you, for our audience, explain a little bit more of what it is to be a forester and what the responsibilities, kind of job duties that you're involved with?
Sure. So being a forester means, number one, you're a professional land manager. It's something that you have to pursue in education first to become a forester and actually get a degree in forestry. Forestry is, the way I define it, is the art and science of producing benefits from forests to humanity. So I practice the art and science of forestry daily through forest management. And that could be anything from providing someone a Christmas tree all the way to a larger goal of restoring forests to what they used to be historically, or restoring a forest post-fire. It involves a lot of different tools, whether it's harvesting timber, prescribed fire, planting of trees, or just providing those products that people need out there to live their daily lives. We do it through a pretty long process of planning, preparing those projects, and then implementing them on the ground. And then afterwards, we'll go back in and do some things to improve the area, like planting of trees or thinning of other smaller trees, or preventing insect outbreaks, disease outbreaks in the future. It's a very involved process, and it gets you very intimately connected with the land. So being a forester is tending your garden. Your garden may be 2 million acres, but it is such a rewarding job.
Yeah, it sounds like what you do really does contribute to the overall public land stewardship, making sure that the way the forest is managed is sustainable for future generations. It just sounds like a lot of work, though. It sounds like you're more involved in the planning aspect, but what are the vehicles that you use to get this work done?
Sure. So I'll explain a little bit about what I've done in recent years with planning. Being a forester involves not expecting to be right all the time, but you really do got to understand what your land management unit needs and what it should be like to be a productive place. So my challenge daily is to find those areas that are in need, and whether it's to restore aspen or reduce hazardous fuels. I'm in the summertime going out and finding these places. I'm seeing what would be the right tool for the right time out here to make this place healthy, productive, or beneficial. So once I get all these ideas written down and planned, I work through an interdisciplinary team of wildlife biologists, botanists, recreation resource managers, archaeologists, all the different groups that manage other resources. And we work through a process called NEPA. That stands for the National Environmental Policy Act. And any vegetation management we do has to go through NEPA. What we're doing in NEPA is analyzing the effects of potential treatment we're disclosing those effects to the public. We're getting feedback from the public and describing what we want to do. And through that process, we're doing things like protecting endangered species, archaeological resources, other things that may be affected. We're trying to lessen the effects. And a good word to use would be mitigate. So we're mitigating the effects of our actions on the land. Once we analyze the effects and disclose them and get public comment, we sign a NEPA decision document that guides the management activities that I can do on the ground. And that's mostly what we do in planning. A lot of it involves engaging with the community. So if you're a good people person, which not a lot of us foresters like to be people persons, we like to be in the woods, you do have to talk to the public and explain to them what you're doing and why it matters. So having that ability to explain is really key in this job. And then engaging with those other governmental organizations, nonprofits, they're really the people that you want to help get buy-in from to explain why you're doing and what you're doing it for.
So it sounds like overall what you contribute and as a forester, really these projects help improve forest health. They reduce fuel loading so that it minimizes, intense, devastating wildfires, and then also improving habitat for different animal species.
Absolutely, yes. One of the big things I've been doing recently is elk habitat restoration. So I talked earlier about working with nonprofits. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation is a group that I've been working with a lot recently to improve aspen stands or forests where elk give birth. And at the same time, I'm balancing my management activities. I wouldn't go in there when elk are giving birth. We give them a chance to calve, move on, and then we do the management activity. And that's pretty common through any management activity I do. But again, that's just one part of it. You can plan all these different projects and have great ideas. It's the getting on the ground phase, which really gets to be the most rewarding part. So definitely planning is a huge part, but you still got to get out there once it's done. And well, I'd say once the planning process is done and get something set up for success.
So you said that you've worked a lot with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, which is a nonprofit that seeks to enhance elk habitat. I assume that they provide the agency some funding for those activities?
Yes, they do. But the key with that is the ability to seek that funding out and write grants. I've been getting into the grant writing world a lot, and communicating that a project is worthwhile for a group of people who want to give money is a tough thing to do. And I never thought I'd be a grant writer, but while I'm in that realm now, and it gets complicated, but it's a great way to get funding to get the job done on the ground.
So when you get the funding to implement these projects, are you using the funding to pay more Forest Service employees to get the work done on the ground, or are you having to hire contractors? How does the entire implementation happen?
Sure. So we do hire a Forest Service crew of seasonal employees every year, and we have some permanent employees who work here to implement these forest management projects. Depending on the size or the complexity of the project, sometimes we'll use our own employees. A lot of times we'll use our own employees for aspen restoration, just because it's a lot more technical and nuanced and it's in smaller areas. And then other times we'll contract out the work to companies that do thinning on a regular basis, or we'll contract with a youth conservation corps, something like the Student Conservation Association, the various different state conservation corps to get the work done. And I really like doing that kind of work just because we get to engage with people who are excited about getting into natural resource management. We get to explain something that is applied science on the ground, and we get to work with those folks to excite them about potentially getting to this career path. Other times we'll prepare a commercial timber sale, and it doesn't cost us money necessarily to get that done, but we're offering the timber as an incentive to come out and do the management work. So that timber generates the revenue for a logging contractor to come out, cut the trees according to our specifications that we wrote in a prescription, and then they'll take the timber, send it to a sawmill, and turn it into the wood products that we use every day.
Just to hear the entire realm of what it is that you do, that seems like a really busy and important job. So how did you get started with your career in the Forest Service?
That's a good question. So I grew up in sunny Southern California, nowhere near any big national forests, but I was always inspired when I went on trips with my family to public lands and especially national forests. And one day I was out and about with my dad up in northern Arizona and ran into a crew of Forest Service employees. And I said hi. I was a little interested in being outdoors at that time. And I asked them what they were doing. And they said, we're Forest Service employees and we're out here preparing a timber sale. And that was kind of the spark that started my imagination of what I could do in land management. After graduating from high school, I started volunteering with the Forest Service and decided to pursue a degree in forestry. And then that led to summer employment with the Forest Service. And then after graduation, it eventually led to permanent employment with the Forest Service. So I started out with a great idea, applied myself as a volunteer, and then that led to bigger and better dividends every year with a different seasonal job. And eventually I got to where I am now.
So you said you started as a volunteer, and what was the organization, or were you just an individual volunteer for the Forest Service?
So I was an individual volunteer. I worked in recreation and wilderness for the Cleveland National Forest in Southern California. I've worked for quite a few national forests in Region 4, which is the Intermountain region, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and Nevada. And then while I was in school in Texas, I went to Texas A&M. I did work as a student employee for the Sam Houston National Forest in Texas. Most of that work during college was in various different programs like recreation, range management, timber. I did some fisheries work, and I really enjoyed that time as a student, a seasonal, and a volunteer, because I really got to see all the different things the Forest Service did. And that really helped me hone in on this forest management, this forester path I want to go down is the right fit for me.
And you told me as well that you have a quite extensive military background as well. Can you tell us how that might have helped you with your career at the Forest Service?
Sure. So currently I'm in the National Guard, and during college, I decided to join the National Guard, and it did help pay for my school. So a lot of folks may have military service as an option to pursue an education. That really was my key to getting education, was military service. And through that, when I graduated, I commissioned as an officer into the National Guard, and I've served for about 10 years now. And really the military, I wasn't a veteran hire, but that experience has really aided me in that kind of complex project management and implementation. I get those great leadership and higher level views of what we're doing from the military, and I bring it into my work daily. Yeah, I'm not going around being a drill sergeant at work, and that's not what we're doing here, but you're getting that experience of, here's the idea, here's the objective, how are we going to plan this out, how are we going to implement? And those skills that I've learned in the military have really helped me to apply myself in being a better forester, I feel like.
In the positions in the military that you've worked have, at least recently, have been more in a leadership capacity, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So most of my work in the military has been in the field of logistics. And as an officer, it's supervising people who are transporting things like fuel, ammunition. We're doing maintenance on vehicles. We're feeding people. We're setting up different operation posts out in a field environment. So those skills, and especially the logistics, is really key to learning how to implement something on the ground. And I'm not a combat arms guy. I'm not a special forces guy at all. I'm a simple logistics guy, but you do have to work with those folks who drive the tanks, shoot the artillery guns, fly the helicopters, and explain to them why it's important to get a good plan for delivering logistics and how we're going to do it. So really what that's taught me over the years is, as a forester, not everybody understands what I'm doing in my professional job as a forester. And it's helped me explain to people that this is why I'm doing it. This is the path that we need to go down. And this is how we're going to get there. And I would just say any skill sets you can get in planning, in communication, and leadership really will help build your confidence and help you as a professional, whether you go into the forester realm or any other realm in natural resources.
Absolutely. I think all of those skills definitely translate. And I think there's quite a few people that wouldn't believe so. And so they omit that kind of experience on their applications when, in fact, leadership, logistics, operations, anything that you can show, it doesn't have to be necessarily in the Forest Service or with another land management agency, but that military experience does count for something. It definitely can translate into the natural resource management realm. And so I think it's great that you're willing to share that with folks, because I think people cut themselves short quite a bit in that area. And it's like, no, we need to pull some of this out, because you really do need to show that you have more experience than what you're putting into this resume. And just because it's not directly related doesn't mean that it's not going to count for something. And so I thank you for sharing that. Do you have any other advice for veterans that might be transitioning out of the military into a civilian job with the federal government in this type of career path?
Oh, absolutely. So veterans are in a unique spot to pursue a land management career. There's plenty of hiring authorities that allow you to even slide into a permanent position quickly after military service. There's what we call the VRA, the Veterans Reappointment Act, and it allows veterans to get a permanent job with the Forest Service or any federal government position immediately once your service is done, up to a certain amount of time. I can't remember the years afterwards off the top of my head, but if you're currently serving or you've recently transitioned out of the military, it's as easy as finding an open spot in a Forest Service office, and you can get appointed to that position very quickly. Aside from that, veterans do get considered as merit employees, which means you can apply for jobs only open to federal employees. And all you have to do is provide your DD 214 for the veterans out there listening, and provide that your service was characterized as honorable and that you are currently discharged from that service or will be discharged soon. And once you get that DD 214 and you bring that great military experience with you, it can lead immediately to a job with the land management agency. So that's really one possibility that they have. I'd say also for those veterans that are transitioning out of the military, you do have your GI Bill. And if you haven't used your GI Bill for education yet, do so. If you're looking at getting into land management, education is key. You can pursue positions without a degree. And there are a lot of people who end up being very successful in that. But I'll tell you this, and it's no secret, there are very few professional land managers out there, and especially foresters. And if you're willing to use, even for those who aren't in the military, if you're willing to pursue a degree in forestry, and I would say programs that are Society of American Foresters accredited, you can earn a forestry degree, have the ability to apply at a number of hiring authorities for veterans, recent graduates, interns, or just applying as a seasonal employee and gaining your time in the agency. And then you can apply that degree immediately. That was honestly one of the best pieces of advice I got early on in my career was go into the forester realm. There's not a lot of foresters. A lot of them are retiring now, and there is so much job opportunity out there. And that really set me down a path of I'm declaring my major as forestry, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's great advice. But also, Nelson, do you have, I know you're a program manager or assistant program manager that's done a lot of hiring recently with temporary forestry positions. Can you share with us some of the hurdles that you've seen or challenges that people are having getting their foot in the door? And if you can provide any advice for those folks?
Sure. So one of the hurdles that is unique to all of us who pursue land management is the big question of where. Where are we going to work? Where are we going to go? Where am I passionate about working? And I've run into a lot of my peers in the profession of forestry, whether they work for a private company, a state agency, a federal agency, wherever, themselves of, hey, this spot is my spot and I really like it, and I'm going to only focus in on working here. If you narrow your options down to one spot, you're missing out on a breadth of other locations where hiring may be a little easier. So if you're hyper fixated on one location, the competition in that spot may be very popular. If you're only interested in a few geographical locations, there may be a lot of other folks who are only interested in that geographical location. If you broaden your horizons and you look to other places, your chances of getting hired are much easier. And that was something I ran into early in my career when I was volunteering. I didn't really have the opportunity because of the budget on that unit to get a seasonal position. So I had to look elsewhere. And I went to many different national forests in many different states for work. And what I found out is I like some places, I don't like some places, but I learned a lot, and I learned what the challenges other places were facing and apply those even to this day in my job of, I remember those days when I went to that national forest or I was living in this community. And really the challenge of getting out there and experiencing it is something that I ask folks to do when they're looking into applying themselves in forestry.
Absolutely, because I know I had to put in my own time in places I really didn't care to be, but it was a small sacrifice in the long run of my career. And so I think also when you get experiences in different forests, regions, locations, you have a perspective, because every forest is unique to itself with its issues and concerns and politics. And so when you get that experience in these different areas, then you're collectively taking all that with you so that when you do go, as you climb the ladder and go into different positions, you can take that knowledge and apply it to what you're doing currently. And I think it's absolutely important to move around sometimes because, like you said, Nelson, that's probably where you're going to get better opportunities anyway than staying in one place.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Most Forest Service offices do have some kind of housing. So if you are applying for positions, always ask what kind of housing is provided, because you may be going somewhere that housing is expensive or housing is limited. Always ask that question when you're applying somewhere.
Yes, definitely. So, I mean, you just, it's always good to do a little bit of homework before you even apply to anywhere, just to make sure that the position that's being offered is what it is being advertised, because the positions with the Forest Service are very general as the agency advertises them, but that doesn't mean with some of these positions that they're all doing the same exact job duties. So it's good to know, yes, like location, what the actual job duties are, where you're actually going to be stationed, and if that's something that you're willing to put up with or sacrifice for the longer term of career development. So I also wanted to ask, that was some excellent advice. This is exactly the same stuff I tell people all the time. It's like, you have to move around, but you also have to do a little bit of homework. And is there any other advice that you can give for folks that are wanting to pursue a forestry career? Are there any other avenues that can be taken to make it easier for people to get a job as a forester or as a forestry technician?
There are so many out there right now. So the Forest Service has been doing these national collective hiring events where we're advertising forester and forestry technician positions nationwide. Every year in the fall, October, November timeframe, the Society of American Foresters holds a national convention, and the Forest Service goes to that convention and hires people to get into forester or forestry technician positions. In nowadays world, you don't actually have to be at the Society of American Foresters convention to get a position. All you have to do is get on USA Jobs during that time, have the qualification to apply, which the Forest Service hires interns. So if you're currently in college, you can get an internship, and upon graduation, you'll get a permanent job with the agency. You can apply as a recent graduate. If your college transcript shows that you have graduated within 2 years of the hiring event, you can apply as a recent graduate. Or if you have hiring authority, what we call merit hiring authority, you're currently a federal employee, you're a veteran, or you have worked for the agency for a total of 24 months within 4 calendar years. That's under the Land Management Workforce Flexibility Act. You can apply for these hiring events. And we hire foresters all over the country and forestry technicians during that event. So that's number one. If you're interested in that event, definitely keep your eyes on social media during the October, November timeframe and be looking for those job opportunities. I see them posted on social media a lot by the Forest Service, by the Society of American Foresters. It's a well-publicized event, but keep your eyes out there.
Life in the Wildlands will post those as they come available. So if you follow our Facebook page, you will always be updated with those hiring events as well.
I'd say the other thing that is going on is our agency is trying quickly to hire as many foresters as possible. So it's March of 2022, and the Forest Service is currently hiring hundreds of positions nationwide, and you don't necessarily have to qualify as a recent graduate. We're hiring people from outside the agency and agency employees for forester positions everywhere right now. It's just another opportunity to get in. You just have to prove that you have the educational requirement if you're a forester, and you're probably going to qualify at the GS7 or GS9 level and be able to get placed into many different forester positions. Later this month, we'll be doing the same thing with forestry technicians. So if you have your resume ready and your college transcripts ready, if you've worked for the agency before, get those SF50s prepared, your performance appraisals prepared, and get all your ducks in a row so that you can apply at this hiring event, because this chance really hasn't happened in my career. It seems like we've never really grown our organization. We've only shrunk. And I'll say this is a super unique time. If you're interested in getting to the forestry or forestry technician realm of work.
Absolutely. And just to clarify for the listeners out there, that the Forest Service and all other federal government agencies hire through the page USA Jobs. And so if you search USA Jobs, that's where you can find what's available right now to apply. And so that's what's going on right now with these forestry positions. So if you're interested, I would recommend going to USA Jobs, but also make sure that you have a good federal resume.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have today, folks. Thank you so much, Nelson, for sharing your story and all the helpful information for folks that are wanting to pursue an outdoor career in a forestry position. And thank you to our audience for listening in with us today.
Thanks so much, Becky. It was my pleasure.
Stay tuned for the next episode where we will be talking with Chelsea Morgan, a botany and range management specialist on the Tahoe National Forest. And she will share what it is to be a botany and range specialist, how she started an outdoor career with the agency, and will share advice for those seeking a job with the Forest Service. See you next time. For more stories about outdoor careers, subscribe to the Life in the Wildlands podcast, where I will be interviewing outdoor professionals to discover exciting opportunities in outdoor careers, share professional experiences, discuss the hurdles to federal employment, and provide advice on how to overcome these challenges. And if you're interested in outdoor jobs and don't know where to start, or if you already are a federal employee with the outdoor career that's struggling to make it to the next level in your career development, Life in the Wildlands can help you on your journey. Check out our career counseling and federal resume development services at www.lifeinthewildlands.com or call 406-848-1660.